on a discussion panel. So that's where they're at, and everyone hates them, and they have no defense against it because they don't understand the internet, decentralization, alternative media. They think it's just going away somehow. I think that's
Right.
the funniest
Or,
part.
or it doesn't exist. Like we still control the narrative
Right.
through the old pathways.
But I
Duh.
think
Yeah.
for them to be satisfied, they have to believe that this is all somehow just gonna stop. People are just gonna stop being upset at them, stop doing the soaring alternative media channels. But there's no reason just why they
Right.
would. Crypto is just gonna go away. Decentralization is not happening. It's not. It's no match against their completely archaic centralized control structures.
Right. Here I'm posting on Telegram before we get started. We're going live. Topic today:
Oh,
how
also,
to.
you remember the complainy pants from BitChute who were saying that they can't deal with the initial lead
Yeah.
up time.
Yeah.
We should maybe come up with some kind of sequence that we can play while we, screw around and get situated. If that's somehow possible, some sequence, some music, some video. I don't know.
Uh, I think it's a good idea, but on the other hand, like, why don't you just take your finger and scroll and find the spot where the show actually starts, like I do when I watch somebody's recording of a live stream?
Because they don't, because they're
Yeah.
prima donnas. But also, if people tune in live, for them,
Yes, that makes more sense.
yeah. I mean, that's what like really successful channels do. Jason Analysis. He has like this intro with the music and all that. And I
Right.
guess people complain about that as well. So I guess you can't really win with
Yeah.
some
You
people.
can't. Well, and especially remember the complaint came on BitChute. Did the guy like was that just a bot account that went around complaining about it? I mean, BitChute is some sort of special
Lose,
hell in
lose
terms
that
of.
tie. Get your act together. Yeah, BitChute is just swarming with feds. Oh, aren't we
It's.
streaming to BitChute as well?
I thought BitChute didn't stream.
Okay, could be. I thought for
Well,
some reason.
we got Rumble, right? We got Rumble,
No, no, no.
YouTube,
Because
Twitch, and Odyssey right now.
the episode that they were complaining about,
Oh
that
yeah, I was wondering that. How did it get to BitChute? Yeah, I'm wondering if BitChute's like still copying from YouTube or something. I don't know.
but BitChute. Have you seen the new BitChute? It actually looks pretty snazzy, if you ask me. I
So
mean,
now this is annoying. Sorry to anybody. We haven't started the show yet. We're talking tech back here, right?
yeah. If there's anyone watching, then and you want to have a conversation, you can chat with us via the
Yeah.
chat.
Or if you really want to, we could throw you in here. I can get you a link really easily.
But yeah,
Uh,
we're totally streaming on BitChute.
we are?
Well, we were at least. The Titus Turning show is on BitChute. It was not the one with the thumbnail.
Huh. Well, and then this is what's irritating me right now on Odyssey. We're streaming, but it's still got the Javier Milei title, even though I typed in the new title on. Uh, yeah, more bugs to work out. Sorry, anybody watching on Odyssey.
We're
Worry
sorry.
about that. Yeah,
We will
worry about
change
that
our
later.
behavior. We're very sorry.
Yes, Nima. Quick question: aesthetic. Do you like this view where we've got the background going on and we're a little smaller, or do you prefer this view where we're much bigger, taking up the whole screen?
Um, I for some reason I think I like the previous one
Okay.
better.
I like how easy it is to switch. I really, really like this new.
But there is some benefit, obviously, to having us larger. So I don't know.
I can click it back and forth just for fun.
Maybe I just like the idea of floating in space.
I like it too. Or underwater, whatever we're doing. Well, maybe I should get an animation of like an octopus that swims by occasionally.
Yes, our octopus friend.
Yes. Okay. I let's hit it. I read a TV.
Okay,
Need
so actually, I'm seeing here. This is where you can update. Where you can update. What's the name? What do we want to name the show?
it is how to navigate against the global oligarchs.
So if okay, so just FYI, when you go in there where you see the stream, you can just edit the episode.
Sure. I guess my irritation was when I set it up in EV Mux, it asked me, what would you like as a title? And I typed it in there.
It's always
And it,
been like that with Odyssey. I think it's always been like that, where we have to then
okay,
separately name the stream that is used by Odyssey.
got it. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Good. Let's get this show started. We got Dylan Moore and Nima Majur of Irita TV. And today we're going to talk about a very, very fun topic, which you're really, really, really not going to hear anywhere else. Because we're going to talk about the global oligarchs, Team Illuminati Overlord, the communists, the globalists, the Plato, like whatever you want to call them. And we're not just going to sit here and bitch about them, right? Like, oh my God, they've got plans since 40,000 years ago and everything's controlled by them and there's nothing we can do. Ah! No, that's not what you're going to get here. We're going to be going over like the nitty gritty of how to successfully get around these guys and how, I mean, we're taking all of this idea and strategy from the Center for Self-Governance, which is where I learned it from, where Nima learned it from, and taking an example of someone who has taken this strategic, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Strategic strategy.
This strategery.
This strategery. There you go. And put it into actual play. So we've had him on the show twice now. I'm trying to get him on the show again. His name's Cole Christensen. He was, this is an interesting story, a state rep in North Dakota. And someone might ask, why do we care about North Dakota? That's because your thinking is limited, right? The goal here isn't to talk necessarily about what's going on in North Dakota. The goal here is to provide an example of how one person, if they're properly trained and have their goals set, can completely demolish the plan and movements of Team Illuminati Overlord, WEF, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, George Soros, bleh.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing how easy it is, actually, right?
It is. I was
For
just
those who
thinking
complain,
about that.
for those newscasts who spend 99% on complaining about it all.
You want me to share the screen that you just added, Nima?
Sure.
Yeah. What is this?
Why?
Oh, yeah, there he is. Zoom in a little bit. There's our man. So Cole Christensen was a state rep in North Dakota. He's a Zoomer, Gen Z. He took this training from Center for Self-Governance.
And he's a truck driver, and he usually wears a baseball cap. And
no, a trucker's hat. A little bit different.
Hat and sports an impressive mullet. So,
so he took this training, used it to develop relationships to become a state rep, and then I got to tell you what he did. I looked up. These are things that pass, bills that passed in North Dakota in the last session. He was able to end mask mandates. He was able to get parents recognized as primary stakeholders over their children's upbringing. He was able to limit the state's ability to designate people as domestic terrorists. He was able to limit the governor's emergency powers. He removed sanctuary status from illegal immigrants throughout the whole state. He was able to solidify the definitions of man and woman, right? A man is biologically X and a woman is biologically Y, right? He was able to get raw milk producers to sell directly to consumers in North Dakota, and he was able to get
that's so huge.
That's so huge.
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that has to be a huge thing.
I mean, in the terms of Team Illuminati Overlord taking over the world, it's not like it's the top thing, but at the same time, it's like that's.
But it really seems to be.
Superfood.
It really seems to be like they act like selling raw milk is the most dangerous thing in the food
They
world.
act like selling raw milk has the same chemical danger as the fluoride that they put in the water that you drink.
Yeah.
I'm making a reference to the chemical diamonds that they have on the side of those trucks. The fluoride that they put in the water has like like in terms of the danger and reactivity on that chemical diamond, it's got the highest rating. It's super dangerous. They act like the raw milk is that bad, right? And then the last one I had here, and again, this is what passed. We're going to talk about an example, deep dive into an example of what didn't pass. But school districts have to allow bathroom usage based on biological sex, and government can't require the use of pronouns when addressing somebody. That is all law in North Dakota now because Cole Christensen took some training and learned how to operate like Team Illuminati Overlord and got this stuff passed in the state of North Dakota. Oh, now what's NEMA sharing? Let's look at this. Oh yeah, fluoride exposure linked to lower IQ in kids study says. Yeah, I mean we've known about that forever. So how did this one guy do all this? Oh, and sorry, by the way, I forgot to add. He's no longer state representative because he got married to a state representative in Missouri. And NEMA's sharing shit so fast, I'm having a hard time keeping up here. Here's some of the things that he sponsored in North Dakota. So he gets married to a state rep in Missouri, so he's moving to Missouri, which hopefully he's able to teach his wife how to do the same thing in Missouri. And apparently his grandmother was able to take over his seat in North Dakota. So hopefully the story continues like this in North Dakota, and it's now spreading to another state. Right? Like, this is the impact of one dude. One dude doing all these things. Okay? So, what I want to talk about is kind of I guess mainly the mindset, part of the mindset that you need in order to do this, because it's so counterintuitive. And when I say it, it's gonna seem innocuous, but it's not. And the key to this, the first step of the mindset we got to get our heads around is not being passionate about the issues that you're passionate about. What? Not being passionate about the issues that you're passionate about. So here's Team Illuminati Overlord does a lot to control us. I mean, there's a lot of different strategies to control us. This is one of the key strategies, is that NEMA over there, for example, is 100% pro-abortion, and he loves killing babies, and that's the hill that he's going to die on. And Dylan Moore is a fundamentalist 6,000-year-old Earth Christian that believes that women should be barefoot in the kitchen popping out babies and that birth control is a sin against God. And by hell or high water, we are going to battle it out to death in the streets. Right? Yeah. And the goal here is I got to make sure that whatever the issue, I bring up abortion because that was like the one that I was, to get people, how hot can you get somebody in the least amount of time? That's a great one to start with, right? Is we need to get these two people fighting each other. And according to Team Illuminati Overlord, they don't really care one way or the other. For them, the state is divine. We just need to make sure that whatever we're doing is in line with what we think that the state needs, whether that's yes abortion or no abortion, right? And the fact that Dylan and NEMA have an issue that they're passionate about says that they are incapable of higher thinking because they are not willing to set aside their immediate passions in order to engage in this higher thinking. So therefore, they're easy to manipulate because if I have agitator A over in the corner for who's on one side of the issue and agitator B in the other corner who's on the other side of the issue, it's very, very easy to get them to fight and not focus on a real issue. Right? So maybe it's gun rights. Maybe it's Medicare for all. Maybe it's relieving student debt. Maybe it's free. Whatever your issue is, it's so easy if you're passionate about your issue. You're like, that's the one thing that I got to have, and that's where I'm drawing the line. And anybody who's against this is against the human race and needs to be battled. If you've got that mindset, you're so easy to control. You're so easy to control. Get this back up like this. And so by being able to sit back from that mindset and say, okay, wait a minute. I want to accomplish X. And in order to accomplish X, I might need to navigate through spots where I'm passionate about and it's against the thing that I'm passionate about. For example, gun rights, right? I'm passionately pro gun rights, for example. And in order for me to get parents as primary stakeholders passed or mask mandates banned or whatever, I'm going to have to interact with somebody who's passionately against gun rights. Take all the guns away, right? The first thought is to say, okay, that person is threatening me to take away my gun rights, take away my ability to self-defense. I would never want to work with him. Well, now you're not going to be able to accomplish much. So first thing is you have to be able to disconnect yourself from those passions, right? And the second thing is you cannot fight the noble lie. The noble lie, to put it bluntly, is like the mainstream narrative of what's going on. Some examples of the noble lie would be climate change and anthropomorphic global warming. Another example of the noble lie would be COVID-19 was the most horrible disease that ever hit the face of the planet. The lockdowns were entirely justified, and the medical response was that the stabbies were the best medicine that ever came and touched the planet. Another that's ever existed. Another example of the noble lie would be on January 6th, Trump supporters attempted a coup and an overthrow on the federal government, right? And you're supposed to not question any of these things. And if you question any of these things, you just get squeezed out of the system.
James, another example of a noble lie is that 6 million people of a certain ethnicity were fried to death by the Germans in 1947, 46.
Yeah, that's a big one. You question that one, you get your head chopped off.
They
right?
will come for you. In Germany, you go to jail for that.
Yes,
So, yeah.
Austria too.
A lot of places in Europe, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you navigate against that if the entire system is set up where they got their ears perked? And if somebody questions the noble lie, and I'm talking particularly in policy-making circles, right? The state legislature, the such and such bureaucracy, where they're actually making real policy and real law to change the way that our system of society works. Those people, their ears are attenuated to somebody challenging the noble lie, and if you challenge the noble lie, they will all hold rank and push back against you. It's the way it's set up. I don't think we need to dive into why that's the case. Are these guys a part of Team Illuminati Overlord? Are they just brainwashed? Are they just going along with it because they're cowards? Doesn't matter.
I would like to suggest something, maybe to interject. The noble lie, I think, is a method that has been working for thousands of years because human consciousness has been at a certain level.
I would agree with that.
As you know, right? It seems to be the case that these noble lies are actually dying a very slow death around the globe.
In public, they are.
In public, they are.
But in the policy-making apparatus,
in the realm of policy making, they're still sacrosanct. And so maybe there's gonna be a time in the next years, decades, where these noble lies die out. But nonetheless, this methodology that Dylan's going to talk about still applies. Like whether the noble lie is hugely successful or very successful or medium successful or mildly successful, it's a good method for as long as we live under this regime, I think.
Right. Well, and then I think what's important to point out is there's the public soap opera. Right now, the public soap opera is the presidential race by far, right? And I'm not saying that who becomes the president isn't important, but in terms of affecting like the structure of the system, you know, I mean, we talked about parents as primary stakeholders, whether or not AI gets personhood rights, whether or not city managers are an legitimate form of government, whether or not, you know, hey, all the governors are attending these in quote private organizations like the National Governors Association, getting their marching orders not marching orders, but ideas from the WEF. Right, and there's all this stuff going on in the back scenes, And normally people are talking about, oh, there's the CFR and the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg Group, and I mean those are things, but again, I'm talking about the actual bones of the system. Like, here's the law that describes how the system works. Team Illuminati Overlord has a direction they're pushing that, and it's boring. It's mundane. You don't even know that it's there unless there's somebody like me jumping up and down, pointing it out to you, right? If you don't know the exact way that the system works and you're unable to point to it and say, here's the thing that we need to fix right here. Here's the word that we need to get control of or we're about to lose it. All that soap opera stuff is a distraction. And to Nima's point, yes, the noble lie is falling apart in the public sphere. Like in conversations like this, I mean, I guess there's still a significant amount of people who watch TV, which is tragic, right? But there's a significant amount of people who don't. And the ability to keep pushing that noble lie is crumbling and crumbling and crumbling. However, like I said, in the policymaking apparatus, let me give an example. Oh my God, Dunkel, there it is. Steve Dunkel recently was elected the county auditor of Mason County in Washington State, which is this tiny county, which you could say, you know, who cares about that? Well, just like there's a National Governors Association, there's a Washington State Association of County Auditors. Well, where all the auditors in the county come together, and when they all come together, Mason County, which is by some metrics the smallest county in the state, the auditor there has the same vote and authority as the auditor of King County, which is the county of Seattle with like almost 2 million people in it. So in this Washington State Association of County Auditors, if you look at the website, one of their stated goals is to craft legislation in order to present it to the state legislature. Now, first and foremost, that should be a warning sign where it's like, wait a minute, no. You guys aren't supposed to be doing that. Get in your own lane, right? But when you, on top of it, when you realize that this is just like the National Governors Association, where there's policy and influence and ideas being dripped in from sources like the WEF, if Steve Dunkel, and I've had a conversation with him about this, if he stands up and he challenges, hey, wait a minute, because you know Washington State has like, in terms of our voting, like which state is the most Swiss cheese in terms of the integrity of its election system? Washington State's like number one. We've got everything going wrong here. It's like literally the worst in the country in terms of how unsecure our election system is, and the auditors are convinced that we have the gold standard of the election system. Whether they believe it or not, I don't know. But if he walks in and he starts challenging at the Washington State Association of County Auditors, and he starts challenging that, they're all going to push him off and what's the word I want? Quarantine him, essentially. Okay, Nima's sharing something. Yeah, here it is. The Washington State Association of County Auditors. Go to About Us. Actually, no, I think I saw, wait, go back. Mission statement. There it is. To foster a cohesive, collaborative group through continuing education, a high standard of conduct, and professionalism. Well, that's totally vague.
Yeah, they must have forgotten to replace that cookie cutter text, I guess.
Uh-huh.
They also have a vision, though.
Yeah, scroll down.
WASCA is an organization of recognized expert and trust prevention areas. That's not really a vision, but okay.
Yeah, go back to About Us. Read that first.
That's interesting. The first paragraph of the About Us, they're just using that as their vision statement. Finance. Almost like somebody had to write some words on their website.
You keep scrolling down. Where did I find it? Okay, now I look like an idiot because I just said that was the case. In State Association of County Auditors. I will erase you.
What are you looking for?
Well, oh, here it is. So at the bottom of the About Us.
Principles for evaluating legislative proposals.
Yeah. So it's all a lot of this is talking about proposed legislation, proposed legislation, proposed legislation. So it's about that they get together and they work on legislation to propose to the state legislature. Which, I mean, it's kind of sneaky because you would say, okay, wait, these guys are the experts on what's going on in their field. Maybe they
Right.
should be doing it, right? But again, if the whole purpose of these organizations, National Governors Association, Washington State Association of County Auditors, the National Municipal Council, or the National Council of County Governments, or what, I mean, these things are everywhere,
Yeah.
and they were dreamed up by a guy who wants to destroy the idea of a government that has separation of powers. And so when you have something where it's like, okay, here's the executive group, which is the county auditors, saying, okay, elections are kind of a big deal of what we do, and oh, the gold standard of elections is to have mail-in votes and to have signature verification and register people by when they get their driver's license and that's the gold standard. Like literally, that's the term they use in Washington State. We have the gold standard of the election system. For Steve Dunkel to come in and say this is trash,
Yeah.
they'll excrete him.
Yeah, this is a government by experts, right? You were just saying, yeah, these people have all the expertise and blah, blah, blah. Maybe they should be proposing these bills. But the point exactly is, as we've pointed out many times on the show, experts are the people that precisely the people you don't want to give legislative powers or input,
Right.
because they are not going to
The
craft the
objective.
legislation
Yeah.
with the population in mind, but with their own objectives in mind. In the long term, they're going to institutionalize blah blah blah. All these things happen, and I think the greatest argument I've heard against the rule by experts recently by Robert F. Kennedy, where he said he was arguing against Monsanto in court, and he had his experts testifying to all the damages done, and Monsanto had their experts to argue why there's absolutely no damage done, only benefits, and blah blah blah. Like for every topic you can find an expert to promote one side and the other side.
Right.
So the argument that somebody's an expert does not make them a good legislator or a good representative of democracy. Democracy is
Or
supposed to
it
be
does.
run.
It doesn't make them magically an objective observer.
Yeah.
Right.
The point of democracy is not that the laws are crafted by self proclaimed or somebody else proclaimed experts, but that the people make the laws, regardless of how they're lacking expertise or how clumsy they are. If they make bad laws, then they can go back and fix it. This is such a crucial thing to understand. The whole point of democracy is not that you're going to have the perfect expertise in charge. You're gonna get legislation that it
It's to
represents.
keep the power spread out.
Right.
Yes. So nobody, particularly an expert, can get a hold of it and go, well, we're going to do everything my way now, right? And just in terms of, I was actually talking to Steve Dunkel about this, and he said he was complaining. He's like, man, it took me a while because when he ran for the position, the mainstream media bombarded him as an election denier and a conspiracy theorist and a blah blah blah. So when he walked into Wasaka, everybody was like, "Who is this creep?" Right? And it took him a while because we kind of been coaching him behind the scenes, like, "Don't talk like that," to get them to warm up to him. And I was saying, and he was commiserating with me. He's like, man, I don't know what to do because they're all convinced that we have the gold standard of election systems here. And I'm like, here's what you do. You don't fight it. You go up and say, we have the gold standard of the election system here, which is awesome, but I want to make it better. I want to make the platinum standard. And Nima, don't you goddamn dare tell me that gold is worth more than platinum right now.
There's it's got to be a diamond or something.
But
Yes.
the point being, sorry, Nima, to interrupt you. The point being is that then you could start to direct them, and they're like, "Oh, you want to make it even better? Now we're listening," as opposed to excreting you because he challenged the noble lie. Go ahead.
Right. And I think one way to, just an idea that I have, like a suggestion on how to maybe get people to consider that they don't have such a great election system is to, okay, we have the gold standard, so how are we solving this attack vector on the elections, and how are we solving this? And is let people talk, or rather not talk, let the silence speak. you
Hmm.
you expose all the things that they are not doing and that they have nothing to say about. I think that's, to me,
That's also
always
that would be an interesting
so
avenue.
powerful. Like today Matt Gates was asking the
I
FBI
saw that.
director,
Yeah.
right? When you brief by, when did you notice his cognitive decline, right? Because you're the competent FBI director, the security of the nation is supposedly at stake, you're concerned about making the best possible decisions. What about this demented dude who can't tie his shoelaces or change his diapers anymore? When did you genius who is in charge of security of the country, when did you notice this obvious decline that every child on the planet is noticing now? And he had nothing to say about that. Oh, it was
Well,
always.
it's always been professional.
Oh, okay. So
Biden's always been professional
you
with me.
okay?
Yeah.
So you're that dull and incompetent. You can't even spot a demented old man who is crapping his diapers every 15 minutes
Right.
and can't string together a coherent sentence if you paid him for it, which is
Which we
literally
do,
what
and he can't do it.
it's literally what's the case. So that's what I think that I would like to see more of that. Let the silence speak. Just tell, just go on and on. Okay, what about somebody just coming here from California or wherever and picking up a ballot and showing some kind of utility bill from some random place and then getting a ballot? Or what about just all these random ballots being sent out to boating docks and to houses, to one
I think the
family house,
homeless are the big one.
the
Honestly, my
homeless.
suspicion is the
What
homeless complex is the big
what
one.
about the password? Like the password is literally your birth date. Isn't that something that's really stupid, to make every Washington citizen's password their birth date?
Oh,
I mean, I'm
well,
not
I've,
even.
I've I tried that one. You know what the answer is? Oh, but it doesn't matter because we have the signature. We have the signature verification match, which is amazing and can never be challenged. And on top of that, in order for them to do that, they have to sign under penalty of perjury. So they could be in a lot of legal trouble if they did that without, falsely. So we just assume that because there's a penalty for doing it, that nobody would actually do it. In the same way that because things like theft and rape and murder are illegal, nobody ever
Right.
does it.
No,
Yeah,
no. So that's a
yeah, that's their
really.
answer. It fucking drives me crazy.
So that's a really retarded way of designing a system that's supposed to be um, resistant against these attacks, right?
You are
Every.
correct, Nima. The
I know,
problem
and
is they will in unison, like fucking parrots, repeat that back to you all at the same time.
I
That
know.
stupid
I,
answer. Yes.
I know. I'm just saying these stupid ass answers, they need to be recorded in public and they need to be hammered and blasted out the people for them to see how ridiculous this organization is, how ridiculous the system is, and over time people pick up on it, and over time you have get people like Steve Dunkel in there, and then others more and more, and then things will hopefully change. But
Well,
yeah, I
yeah.
know.
Well, and then I guess that's kind of the long term play of actually breaking the noble lie, right?
Yeah,
Um, for now, in the imminent, I wanted to focus on it's there and we got to work with it, right? And I brought up Steve Dunkel as kind of a case point
yeah,
of how he's working in here. And what I want to get to is where Cole Christensen, the North Dakota rep that we brought up earlier, actually wasn't successful in a bill because. And then I actually asked him about it, and I'm like, "Why didn't this one get through?" And he basically said, "I had to pick my battles, right? I mean, I had to decide whether I was going to focus on this or focus on that, and I wasn't able to focus on that." And in this case, that is the vaccine schedule in North Dakota for school children, right? And I popped this up and I read through it. We're going to bring it up. It's barely 3 pages, right? So we will be reading it, but it won't be that bad. This was so brilliant and it's such a perfect example of what I'm talking about here, because if we've got the vax situation, right? And in terms of not offending the YouTube algorithm, I'm trying to be careful as I say this, right? Is we've got what's the noble lie. The noble lie presents this as you have the glorified pro-vax side and you have the insane anti-vax side, right? And you there's no real middle ground that you're allowed to have. You're either pro good or you're pro the bad side. And if you question, if you're like, even people who are like, hey, I love vaccines, but I do have questions about this. Often you'll just get shoved over. Oh, you're just a crazy anti-vaxxer that wants all these kids to die from all these preventable diseases.
If you don't want to force
Yeah.
medical experimental gene drugs on people, that makes you a crazy anti-vaxxer.
Right. And I mean, so let's just go with the official statement on the vaccines. We'll get to the COVID stabby in a second. That's a separate conversation, right? But what's the official statement on the vaccines? Is you take the dead virus, you put it into the person's body, and the body develops antibodies against the dead virus. So when the real virus comes around, you already have the immunization in order to fight the live virus. That story sounds great, right? That's it's like that. That's fucking amazing if we could do that, right? Now the questions then become, well, how effective is it? What are the side effects? This sort of thing. And once you ask a little bit too much into that direction, suddenly you're an anti-vaxxer, right? And then what gets more interesting is you go, hey, wait a minute here. Why don't vaccine manufacturers have liability over the product? And wait. Why doesn't the product get the same level of testing that any other medical product would have? Like, I'm pro-vaccine, but why? What's up with this, right? So let me pull this. Let me pull this up. This bill that did not make it, unfortunately, in North Dakota, but is at the scene. Got it. But is a fascinating read for what I'm talking about now. So here it is. This is for 2023, and North Dakota has their legislative assembly every 2 years, so this is 2023 is the most recent. So here's Christensen as one of the sponsors. So this is a bill for an act to create and enact a new section of chapter whatever of North Dakota law relating to COVID-19 vaccinations and experimental vaccines for students at institutions of higher education, and to amend and reenact subsection 1 of whatever relating to school and daycare immunizations. So the first thing that he gets into here was, essentially making it so you can't force the COVID vaccine. And in case you're unfamiliar with a bill, any part that's not underlined is what the law currently is, and any part that's underlined is what is to be added or to be changed, right? So all this under COVID-19 and experimental vaccination limitations is something that he's proposing to add to the law. So an institution under the control of the State Board of Higher Education may not require a student to be vaccinated against the severe acute respiratory syndrome of coronavirus 2, or receive an experimental vaccine as a condition of enrollment or in-person attendance. So basically, this is banning COVID stabby mandates in North Dakota for specifically schools, right? And they're also not to promote it, the receipt of an experimental vaccine or the COVID vaccine. Now, what's interesting here is that he keeps saying COVID and experimental. COVID and experimental. So North Dakota is obviously a red state, and the red states were more aware of the situation, right, in terms of the COVID stabby. And what I see that he's doing here is that the hot anger and passion in the public is about the COVID stabby. But he's writing in right next to it experimental. He keeps saying experimental vaccine, experimental vaccine. We're going to see why that's important in a second. So moving on to subsection 2. As used in this section, experimental vaccine means a vaccine approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration, which does not meet the following criteria. So basically, it's experimental if the FDA approved it, but these other things have not happened yet. number one, the pivotal clinical trial the United States Food and Drug Administration relied on to approve the vaccine evaluated the safety of the vaccine for at least 1 year after the vaccine was administered against a control group that received either a placebo or another vaccine that meets the criteria under the subsection. So that's fancy legal terms to say in order for it to not be experimental, it needs to go through a control
This
study
is
like anything else.
this is so easy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is the thing that should have been done everywhere for all not just vaccines, all kinds of. It's done actually for most pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, but
It's so
the
simple.
vaccines get a special get out of jail free card for this,
But
right?
yeah,
I mean,
take one group
that's the
that
problem.
gets a placebo, take another group that gets this great drug that you're peddling, and give us the results. Give us the results, plain and simple.
Right. Okay. So yes, in order for it to be not be considered experimental, you can't have this. Second, the Department of Health and Human Services has. I'm assuming that this is the North Dakota Department of Health and Human Services, has posted on the department's website the injuries or diseases caused by the vaccine and the rate at which the injury or disease occurs from the vaccine. Like any other fucking drug is supposed to do. Right? But I mean, before we were recording, Neiman just mentioned this, is that him and his wife have noticed on commercials that if you watch a normal pharmaceutical commercial, 2/3 of the commercial is listing the side effects, but if it's a vaccine, they don't.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and we'll get into the liability protection here in a second. The third thing, the Department of Health and Human Services has determined the risk of the permanent disability or death from the vaccine has been proven to be less than the risk caused by the infection the vaccine is intended to prevent. So basically, the
Duh.
vaccine, like, if we compare the deadliness and this disability of the actual disease versus the cure has to be better than the actual disease, and you have to prove that,
Yeah.
right? Again, totally reasonable, of course, right? And then D, the vaccine manufacturer has liability, including for design defect claims for any death or injury caused by the vaccine. And as anybody who has cursory knowledge of the issue understands, vaccine manufacturers have extremely limited liability for damages caused by their drug, by their medicine, right? So what he's done here is
So
he hasn't challenged vaccines.
yeah,
He just says, I want them to undergo the same process and the same rules as every other fucking medicine that we have in our system.
yeah. No, they are saying these vaccines are great, and all I'm
Yeah.
asking is for the ceremonial act of giving us the data that has convinced you that these vaccines are so great. That's all we're
Right.
asking for. Because you keep telling us, keep lecturing us. One thing would question about point D is the vaccine manufacturer has it should I would have said unlimited liability, because they do have liability, but it's capped up to a certain amount. I wonder if they could use that as
Yeah,
a
that is an interesting question, and I know part of the CSG strategy, which takes it from Team Illuminati Overlord playbook, is you got to work in increments.
yeah, or maybe
So
it has
basically, this is like a
proportionate
wedge
liability.
to get in the door. Yeah,
Yeah, the vaccine manufacturer has proportionate liability or something like that. But yeah,
yeah,
there's a bunch of other safeguards before this one as well, right? So there's 4 different points.
right.
So even if they can, make something up here, the other ones still have to be met. So
So what he's essentially done here is, again, I said that experimental vaccine is really the key point here, not COVID-19. COVID-19 is what carries the passion that gets everybody interested in calling their state representative and their state senator to say, hey, I want this bill to pass, right? But the key here is experimental vaccine, and what he's essentially done with these criteria is turned every single vaccine into an experimental vaccine because none of them meet this criteria. You
well,
see that?
I guess maybe there are some, like tetanus or whatever. I don't know. They might meet this criteria, but I
Okay,
don't
sure,
know.
but my point still stands,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so going on, this is where
I mean,
it just
certainly
gets.
mRNA is gonna be impossible with these clauses.
So this is where it gets super clever. Is that was for higher learning institutions, right? Here's now for any. he says, public, private, or parochial school or daycare center, child care facility, Head Start program, or nursery school operating in the state or being supervised through home-based instruction. So even homeschoolers, actually, I didn't read the whole thing. A child may. This is the current law. It's not underlined. A child may not be admitted to any of the previous things that I just said unless the child's parent or guardian presents the institution authorities a certification from a licensed physician or authorized representative of the Department of Health and Human Services that the child has received age-appropriate immunizations against the litany, right? Diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, measles, rubella, mumps, Hep B, Haemophilus influenza type B, varicella, which I guess is chickenpox, poliomyelitis. Man, these are too big words for me to read this fast. Pneumococcal disease, meningococcal disease, rotavirus, and hepatitis A. The gamut, right? So right now, in the state of North Dakota, to homeschool your own children, they need to have these vaccines by law.
Is there no religious exemption clause?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but just according to what we're reading here, right? Now, what's beautiful here is he doesn't challenge any of that. And you're like, what? He doesn't challenge any of that? No, he just goes and gives the same criteria that he gave above. And then here's a clause that just specifically blocks the COVID-19 vaccine. In the case of a child receiving home-based instruction, this is just emphasizing that even if you're homeschooled, you still have to get the vaccines for your kid. And then this is the same language that we read before, as used in the subsection. And if an experimental vaccine means a vaccine approved by blah 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 blah, blah with these 4 criteria, and above we just read. Oh, I'm sorry, it has it right here. An immunization listed under this subsection is not required if the immunization is provided by an experimental vaccine. Right. You see what he's doing? You see what he's doing? He's like, oh no, vaccines are great. The medicine's great. I love it. It's good. It's great. Whatever. However, we can't
just prove it that these are.
But you can't force any experimental medicine, which everybody would agree with. Oh, it's bad. You can't force experimental medicine. And then per the definition that he gives here, this turns all the current vaccines on the whole fucking list into an experimental vaccine.
Yeah, unless they can prove that they are actually working.
And if they can, then great.
Yeah, great.
But we know they can't. We know they can't. Right?
Yeah.
So this is so genius to approach it this way. Do you see? This doesn't battle the noble lie at all. I mean, maybe it does with the COVID vaccine, but again, this is a highly rural, highly red state, and I could see from this that the COVID vaccine isn't even the important part of this proposed legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Because technically, the COVID vaccine is an experimental vaccine based on this description, so it's redundant.
Yeah, I mean, the way this law is written, it's just basically asking for all the reasonable things that anyone would ask for, and it's just
for any medicine. And it's the rules for any other medicine.
Yeah, so it's something where if you want to reject this, you want to argue against it, I would like to hear your arguments. I'd like to hear, why would you want to administer an experimental injection that has worse side effects than cures,
or you're unwilling to show that that's the case. Or why would you want to administer medicine? That doesn't have the 1-year control group test? Why would you want to administer a medicine where they won't give you the side effects, the negative side effects that you posted on the website?
They won't give you the cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah,
that's what I've been asking for this whole time with this whole COVID propaganda. Show me the cost-benefit analysis. Where is it, bro? Is that too much to ask? Seriously? Yeah, all I'm asking is to show me that the benefits outweigh the risks. They can't.
Yes.
These scumbags can't do it, and yet they want me to take it.
They want to
Weird.
force you to take it without it.
Weirdos.
Well, we didn't actually
Weirdos.
force you. We're going to force you to take it, but we didn't actually force you, right? That was the
It was
story.
voluntary. All
So
we said is that you can't board a train, can't board a plane, can't go to the grocery store, can't go to the gym,
right,
can't live
you
a
can't do
life
anything to
anymore, can't buy
survive, but
anything.
we didn't force you,
Right.
right? So again, the beauty here, again, going back to the noble lie. Now this one didn't pass, and again, that he had to pick his battles. I think this is a pretty big one, but parents as primary stakeholders and limiting the state's ability to declare who's a domestic terrorist. Those are pretty big. Oh, you know what? I left off this. Did I put it on the list? I left it off the list. He also got personhood defined as only human beings and corporations. He wasn't able to get corporations knocked off. But we did a whole we did a whole show on that where rocks, trees, lakes, inanimate objects, and AI legally are not considered persons within the state of North Dakota now. That was Cole Christensen. So he did it. Again, if he wrote this and instead of doing it this way, he said, okay, we're going to change the current law to say none of these things are required, it would have gotten laughed out into the stratosphere. No one would have taken it seriously, right? But because there's two things going on here. One, he does not battle the noble lie. And second, I could see what he's doing with the COVID vaccine, because again, this is redundant based on the description he gave here. The COVID vaccine would be experimental, so all the reference to COVID vaccine could be left out, and it would still apply to the COVID vaccine. But because he put it in there, that generates the ire in the public that are concerned, that have their issue that they're passionate about. But then there's a hidden virus on this, Nima, which was the experimental vaccine definition.
He's playing jujitsu, basically. He's taking this. Okay, you're telling me that all these vaccines for all this bullshit, chickenpox, Gardasil, pertussis, the code, that they're so great, awesome.
Prove it.
It's like
right?
It's not saying no, I don't want all this. It's jujitsu. He's taking their attack and throwing it right back in their faces.
Yeah. This is, I mean, it's just so phenomenal. And maybe his grandma will be able to pull it off in the next session.
Yeah, I'm rooting for his granny.
Yeah, no, this is so freaking cool. And so here, I'll take this off, and we'll go like this. So, I mean, I really wanted to take the time to emphasize this because, again, you're not going to hear this sort of talk on other stations. Other stations are obsessed about, right now, the presidential election. They're obsessed about, here's what Klaus Schwab, or I guess he quit, right? Here's what the new guy, I don't even know his name, that replaced Klaus Schwab, this is what he's saying. Here's what George Soros is doing. Oh, my God, they're taking over all the DA's office, and we can't vote them out because the election system is messed up. Ah! America's over. We're not talking like that over here. We're showing here's what people are actually doing to systematically make sure that our country either A, stays the way that we want it, or B, gets fixed in a better direction. And to the point that Nima made before, Team Illuminati Overlord is completely defenseless against this. And I believe... And Mark Hare from Center for Self-Governance, this is what he said. The reason they're so defenseless against this is because their philosophy of human beings doesn't allow that we're even capable of doing it. Because according to them, we're just like these automatons that react off of stimuli and passions that are easy to control. That's why I started talking about at the beginning. The first thing you have to do is step back from your passions, because we might have a passion about this, Nima, to say vaccines are evil, right? We must battle them at all costs and fight everybody who tries to promote these vaccines that are killing and making our children sick, right? Which, I mean, maybe that's true and that's the righteous thing to say, but it's not effective. This is effective. This is effective. Where you don't battle it. I think you put it very well. You jujitsu it. You jujitsu it.
Yeah, you you do this in jiu-jitsu sometimes where I push the opponent, and I'm not pushing them to push them, I'm pushing them so they push back.
And then you could redirect it because you know.
Right, and then they come at me, and then I can throw them or do some sort of sweep.
Yes. No, so again, this is not a black pill channel. This is totally a white pill channel. And then this is what one guy did. This is what I really want to emphasize. We talked about the weakness of Team Illuminati Overlord. This is what one guy did. And I mean, the more I talk to these Center for Self-Governance guys, the more that my eyes are just like opened wide with my hair and blow back. I'm like, you were able to accomplish what? I mean, what about the woman in Utah, single mom in Utah, who as a part-time hobby was able to connect with her state representative and get the AI and inanimate objects do not have personhood status within the entire state of Utah passed and signed by the governor. One fucking person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you might say, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, was a group in Utah that wanted to give the Great Salt Lake personhood rights, which is to say, if the Great Salt Lake is supposed to be at a certain water level and it has the right to exist, and if you do anything to threaten its water level, you are going against its rights, meaning you could be prosecuted. You could be charged with assault or murder or attempted murder or something like that. That's the whole point of like giving these inanimate objects and AI personhood rights, is to take them away from you, right? And so this is what I'm talking about with like systematic. The system that we operate in is now we're less interested in the football game of who becomes president. Right? Oh my God, Trump did this, and oh, he almost got shot, and Biden's a potato, and Kamala Harris is blah, blah. Again, I'm not saying that's not important, but this becomes a very different conversation where we're in the back where the whole building is wired. And we're going, well, if we wire it like this is going to happen. If we wire it like that, that's going to happen. And that's going to have a much, much bigger impact than whoever's in the building saying what they're going to do in the building. Right? If I rip this all out and the lights all turn off and the water doesn't work, the building's useless. I don't know if that metaphor was continued to be apt, but I think I got my point across. This is exciting stuff, and if we want to win, we got to start thinking like this and putting it into practice. And this guy's just a perfect example of putting this stuff into practice. I mean, this is so, what's the word I want? Creative, sneaky, clever. That's the word I want. This is so clever, I can't look at this bill and not laugh. It's so clever.
It needs to permeate all activism across all states, counties.
Thank you, Nima. That's what I'm saying. And also what I'm trying to emphasize, again, going back to, well, who cares about North Dakota? Well, like we just said, it looks like this in particular, from this one guy, is bleeding into Missouri now, and there are teams all over the country doing this, right? Idaho's got a huge presence. South Dakota's got a huge presence. Utah's building a strong presence. Tennessee's building a strong presence. Washington State is building a strong presence, okay? It doesn't take a lot of people to really start to push this stuff within the system. So, yeah, so, I guess. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Then you got to get off the soap opera. I mean, you still got to be aware of the soap opera drama of the partisan politics, but you got to take a step back from that and realize that's all about you having your passions invigorated, so you could fight against your other human being who's had their passions invigorated on the other side, and nobody accomplishes anything because you guys are too busy fighting. And Team Illuminati Overlord, does its evil laugh like, yes, they're doing exactly what we want. Yes. Any other commentary on that, Nima? I think I've blown my load on the topic.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to discuss the recent leaks briefly in Germany. There was a big government leak of COVID vaccine.
Oh yeah. I guess just to show how noble the noble lie is, right? Where it's like,
right.
What they're telling us versus like what they actually know in the background. You sent me the article, but it's in German.
Yeah, it's in German. I'll just translate, I guess. Translator. I just want to point out a few small little paragraphs.
Zoom in a little bit. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's all in German. Whatever.
I can do it. Yeah, so it says Corona. This is what the state wanted to keep secret from you. This just happened in Germany. It was a big leak of the German CDC's, um, which is called Robert Koch Institute, the RKI. It's the RKI files, which were previously made available redacted, and now they were leaked unredacted. And there's a journalist. Her name is Aya Velasquez. She's breaking this story. They had a big press conference recently, and some of the bombshells in there, at least one of them, is that, for example, here in their own files, it says that vaccination of children, even though the um, I think it's the Pediatric Doctors Association.
Yeah.
Even if they are not recommending the vaccination of children, the Bundesminister, the Federal Minister Spahn plans to do it anyways. Okay,
So now wait a minute. This isn't the official statement. That's what got leaked.
that's got leaked.
Right.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is the internal conversation
internal
that they're having.
protocol.
Yes.
Here's a big one. There's no indication that the vaccinations reduce the spread. The expert recommendations remain the same as long as there's no contrary direction from the federal Ministry of Health.
So multiple statements like, we don't have any evidence that this is working, but we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, and what is huge about this particular leak is that the people within the organization that did these protocols, the people themselves, argued in front of the German Constitutional Court in favor of mandatory COVID vaccinations. And as part of that, they said that the vaccination does change the spread of the virus, does reduce the spread, even though internally they knew that it doesn't. So they've knowingly perjured themselves in front of the Constitutional Court in Germany. So some people are hoping that some thing will come out of that. And here also pediatric medical associations are opposed to or skeptical, actually reprehensive towards vaccination of children, but the politics is preparing vaccinations anyways. There's a booster being planned by the ministry, even though there's no recommendation and partially no.
What's Zulassung mean?
Zulassung is you're allowed to do it. So authorization.
Authors. Okay.
No authorization. And then for some reason here, what I thought was weird, they are quoting the American Academy of Pediatrics, I guess. Why? Why do you not quote your own country's expert councils? Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Like how much influence just coming from the U.S. mega corporations, seemingly, just saying, "Hey, the American Academy of Pets is saying this." The AP.org. The wearing of masks should be maintained, even though there's no incidence of the disease or anything. Please, so this is some kind of a demand to strengthen the way that the law is formulated, or that the guidances are formulated for the public. And here's some stuff about testing, just for political reasons. We want more testing. How can we get there? No benefits cited, just the political will. Literally, they're saying the politischen Wunsch, the political will. Here, this is hilarious. Target communication to the groups, to the particular target groups. It has to be
young men.
It has to be made cool to get vaccinations. Es muss cool sein, sich impfen zu lassen, right? So these bureaucrats in their suits and their goggles, sitting there telling the youth what's
doing TikTok dances,
cool thing to do. Get that stabby. Or here, an influencer. Here's an initiative, an influencer vaccination challenge of YouTube. And some aspects of the topic could be approached with more humor. For example, the fear of side effects. Um, so I
So
found this
just
interesting.
laugh off the idea that there could be side effects to
Well,
this
no,
thing.
no. Actually, what is this? This is really psycho warfare. It's like they're saying it seems to be effective to um, to share your side effects story and make it funny. So they're saying here, for example, El Hotzo, who's a far left government TV mouthpiece, who actually recently was also in hot water because he publicly stated he was sad that Trump wasn't assassinated successfully.
Mm-hmm.
So a complete psycho who's allowed to spread his propaganda by German state taxpayer-funded state TV, of course, right? So he made into a topic. El Hotzo, zum Beispiel hat El Hotzo bei seiner Impfung seine Impfreaktion thematisiert. So he turned his reaction, his post vaccination reaction into a
His
topic.
negative vaccine reaction, right?
Yeah. So
He
make it, and I've noticed
dramatized it.
people, I've seen
Yeah.
people do this. I've seen the vaxxers do this left and right. Oh my God, I felt like I was hit like a train. But,
Yeah.
whatever.
But I did it, and it was worth
I
it.
did.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I never thought of that as like a deliberate strategy. Um,
Well, and
and
then I mean, this is also giving you an indication of like how so many little details were just funded by these organizations and promoted by these organizations to make it look like that they were organic.
yeah,
I
totally.
mean, it's just
These influencers.
it's so
I mean,
dumb.
this
It's
was
so
the same
dumb.
in this was same in the US too. They paid Instagram influencers to shill for government vaccine propaganda. They paid them 5 to 10K to pump the government's bullshit narrative about COVID vaccines. How cringe is that?
That's pretty cringe.
So these were some of the big things about the leaks. In other news from Germany, also by the way, because I was just one thing came to mind because I was talking about El Hotzo, who's a far left propagandist who um, glamorized the assassination of Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the German state has shut down the right leaning Compact magazine. Just shut him down. I don't know if you heard about that story,
No, I have not
but
heard
it
about
was a
that one.
big magazine for the AfD. They had a circulation of 40,000 physical magazines that they sent out every month, and they had an online presence. And the government just shut them down. They didn't like. They did not convict them for a crime. There was no trial for a crime. There wasn't even a charge for a crime. They just decided, with a stroke of a pen, to shut down the magazine whose words they don't like. They didn't call for the assassination of
But
anyone,
Nima, the
like their
Europeans are so
state-funded,
much more enlightened
taxpayer-funded
than the
propaganda did.
Americans. How could this possibly be true?
What? Come again? I didn't hear
I
that.
said, but Nima, the Europeans are so much more enlightened than the Americans. How could that possibly be true?
Yeah, maybe that's what enlightenment means. Maybe, right? You fall for
Right. Yeah.
scientism propaganda. You turn scientism into religion.
I actually had to explain the midwit meme to a friend yesterday because he'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
And I was Nima posted on our Telegram. What the heck was it about? Which about Europe doing something where they want a digital record of everybody's assets in the entire European Union or something like that.
Yes.
And then I did the midwit meme where it's got the idiot on one side of the standard deviation, the Jedi on the other side for the high IQ, and in the middle you got the midwit, right, at around 100 IQ, right? And then I had Europeans in the middle and Americans on both sides. Well, we got all the total caveman retards and all the Jedi Knights here, and in Europe you've got all the midwits. Which German speakers in particular, and Nima will attest to this, coming from Germany, that the Germans are really, really, really skilled at making themselves sound smart. Here's the meme.
Yes. Did you see the? I just shared the meme. that
Yeah,
you talked
yeah,
about.
I'm sharing it right now. So
They are very much into sounding sophisticated, and citing this scientist and that scientist, but they can't go deeper. They are incapable. I don't know what it is. It's like it's unimaginable for them to go beyond certain talking points and look
Right.
what's underneath and where it came from.
Right,
Because
where
if
it's
they
like,
did
well,
it, I
okay,
guess
let's go back to base, fundamental principles and see how this compares to fundamental principles. And based on what my fundamental principle is or isn't, how do I feel about this thing that I just fucking cited or this thing that you just fucking cited? They don't do that, right?
right,
I mean, is that's the point that you're getting at? Where
absolutely.
in America, I mean, yes, we've got a
You
whole
question
bunch.
authority. There's this
What's that?
thing where the country was founded on questioning the king's authority, and that still carries through to this day, I think.
Right. Right. And I've made this claim. I don't know if I ever did it on the show. America seems to be the best and the worst at everything.
Hmm.
Like we got a lot of dumb people here. You know, I'm a redneck and I snort WD-40 for fun, and then I'm gonna drink or I'm gonna eat all these carcinogenic uh, chicken tarts or chicken waffles, and then stick a bottle rocket up my nose for this party
But
tonight. Like we
right,
got a lot of those guys,
we
right?
also have the Ivy League schools that even the European aristocrats want to go to.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
yeah, there's like not not
We're
saying
on
that
both
they're
sides of
great,
the spectrum.
whatever. But yeah, there's that distinction, or there's the dichotomy in the U.S. Definitely, it's a country of more extremes, maybe you could say.
Yeah.
Whereas Germany is a country of, as Carol Quigley has characterized brilliantly, it's a country of comfort, of Gemütlichkeit. That's the one word he uses actually to characterize the German spirit. It comes from tribal, uh, barbarian days of being comfortable in your tribe, not venturing out. Right, the Germans never went out to conquer, other than once when they had enough of the Romans, I guess they sacked
Yeah.
Rome at one point, but they didn't go out and conquer like crazy. They were wanted to feel comfortable in their tribes, and that kind of got shattered by the Romans taking over in the border regions, right? And the Germans started adopting Roman lifestyles, but they were okay with it. They were not okay. We're no longer necessarily comfortable in our tribe. We're now accepting this new lifestyle of cohabiting with the Romans. And then, shortly after they decided to do that, the Roman Empire collapsed. And Carol Quigley says this double whammy of trusting the tribe once and it went away, and trusting the new Roman tribe and that collapsed, that has never really left the German psyche, apparently.
I have to reread that part on Germans or Germany, because Quigley has a bunch of parts in Tragedy and Hope where he just like expertly describes the culture of this or that country. It's
And then
incredible
also another characterization. I don't know why we're talking the German.
because of the Midwit meme.
Right.
Yes.
So Quigley talks about, Brzezinski in his book, The Grand Chessboard, or yeah, I think it's Grand Chessboard. He talks about what the two relevant forces in Europe are basically Germany and France. Nobody else is really relevant. UK has kind of extracted themselves, and he ended up being right about that. But he says that France seeks reincarnation through Europe. Wants to be great power again with the help of Europe. He says Germany seeks redemption through Europe. Germany wants to show everyone how not evil they are,
Right.
and how they're into diversity and all the things that you associate with Germany because of American propaganda. No, 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 we're not those things. So they go extra hard in the woke direction, which is all about,
We're not
showing,
Nazis. We're gonna do
proving, proving
opposite of
how,
everything the
yeah,
Nazis have claimed to have ever done. We're gonna do the opposite of that. Yeah.
proving how guilty you feel
Right.
for yourself, and never stopping that, constantly wanting to show how guilty you feel for everything and apologizing for everything. That's the
Yeah.
German
Yeah. Even though like the
spirit,
last
ultimately.
generation involved with that sort of stuff, whether it was true or not, is almost entirely dead.
Yeah, that never
They're
seems
almost
to
entirely
matter.
gone. Yeah.
That never seems to matter, these narratives. California is about to pass reparations for slavery, and that money is paid by people who never owned slaves, goes to people who never were slaves in a state that never had slaves. Congratulations, California.
Sounds about right.
Brilliant
But
move.
I want to go back to the article that we just read in German because, in terms of the noble lie, right? It really, really shows the power of the noble lie because these people in the interior of this, what was the organization? RFI,
RKI, yeah, Robert Koch
RKI,
Institute.
right? Uh, they
By the way,
knew.
sorry to interrupt. Just
Yeah.
one funny tidbit. Robert Koch, you know the name, right? That's who the institute is named after. He's the guy who came up with a methodology of how you can prove that you've discovered a virus, and it happens to include you have to take the virus, you have to inject it into a healthy organism, and you have to show that the virus causes the symptoms that you claim it causes in the previously healthy organism. You know, that thing that they stopped doing whenever
Oh,
they
you mean that
decided
whole scientific method thing?
the whole
That thing?
scientific method thing, where
Yeah.
then now they've invented excuses as to no, you don't have to do those things anymore because reasons, and of course it
Because not
makes it more
having a
comfortable.
symptom is a symptom, and you better get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so these guys within RKI, like the leak shows, they knew that everything that they were saying was complete bunk, and I presume that it never occurred to any of them that they weren't going to do it anyway. Right? The noble lie is so strong with these people, whether they outright believe it or what, or I mean, I don't know why. The noble
Well,
lie is so strong with them. Like even when they're talking about it, like, look, hey, there's no evidence any of this works. Well,
it's just
whatever.
yeah,
We need to make it happen anyway, right?
it's just stone evil. It's also something we talked about yesterday off the record, where you were like you were saying, or we were saying, because these are career people. They are existing at some sort of subsistence. They have their path mapped out in their bureaucracy, and that's the red cloth, they have in front of them. They are chasing. They cannot afford deviating from the noble lie in public. They have for just for subsistence, for existence, and for their selfish pride and desires.
Well, and it could,
They
I mean, even add peer pressure to that. Maybe if they're
peer
like, I'm
pressure
not sure about
included.
this, but I don't have the guts to stand up to everybody else in this
Yeah,
office. Yeah.
cowardice. So they don't have the virtues it takes, and they have all the vices it takes to play along and to go along to get along. And that's why you said yesterday, right? I want my scientists to be aristocrat lords who have to worry about nothing. That's the kind of scientist
I
I
forgot I said
want.
that.
You know,
Yeah.
like I want my scientist to be somebody who never has to worry about his career at all. And I agree. It's nothing that scares me more than a hungry, driven career scientist. What a scary creature that is. Because he'll do anything and everything.
Yeah.
He'll
I'll
peddle
make up
anything and
data.
everything.
I'll fake stuff. Yeah. I'll lie about people. Easy. Easy. You know who it reminds me of? I believe the name was Phil Jones. Remember in 2011 when ClimateGate happened?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Anglia, I think Anglia
head of
University.
the climate department of the University of East Anglia had his
East Anglia,
emails
yeah.
leaked. And he's like openly stating, we need to change and hide data because it doesn't support our conclusion. We need to get control over the peer review process because otherwise people who challenge our ideas will get papers published. I mean, just like openly corrupted and antithetical to the very premise of what the scientific method is supposed to be. Just like
Yeah,
literally the
so
opposite
we
of
have
what
to
you're supposed to be
hide the
doing.
medieval,
Yeah.
like one quote I remember, we have to hide the medieval warming
Yes.
period.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, changing the data, right?
Yeah, and it's similar to what we just looked at within the RKI leaks. Like the policy wants the following outcomes. How do we manipulate and doctor the data and the narrative around all that? I just shared that
Yeah,
story.
I'm on it. I'm
Phil
on it.
Jones, there he is. Leaked climate change email scientists hid data flaws. I mean, people can read it if they want to.
Right.
I
If you
mean,
forgot about it, that was the, you know, I told the story to Nima yesterday too. Now that we're talking about things that happened off the record, so I'm a chemistry major for anybody watching who doesn't know, and I took 4 quarters of college chemistry, and they got pretty gnarly near the end. Let me freaking tell you, you get into physical chemistry. People often talk about how horrible organic chemistry is. That ain't nothing. Organic chemistry is a walk through the park compared to physical chemistry. And when I was taking some, I think it was an elective class on surface chemistry. And my professor was decided to interject the Al Gore's inconvenient truth on it. Not that we watched the video, but he pulled up the graph, like, here's anthropogenic global warming, and it's your responsibility as aspiring scientists to solve this problem, that the Earth is warming up because we got all this stuff going on. And at the time, I didn't know enough to argue with him, other than to say, because he started talking up nuclear energy, which I'm more pro nuclear energy than I was in the past. But at the time, I had been reading a lot about how, first of all, there's meltdowns, but second of all, how the depleted uranium gets used for military weapons, and they get shot all over the world. And I'm like, that's an environmental fucking catastrophe right there. So if we're going to talk about environmentalism, like, let's have everything on the table. And so as he was talking about all this nuclear energy, I raised my hand and I'm like, well, the waste gets used as depleted uranium bullets that makes these war zones radioactive. And his response to me was, well, that's political. And I was too much of a dumb young kid to know how to handle that. I know how to handle that now. But this was in like 2008. And the Phil Jones leak came out in like 2011. I wish to God that those dates were reversed for that instance, right? So if he's like, well, that was just political, and I can be like, oh, let's motherfucking talk politics then, right? How is this Phil Jones thing not political? Like, give me a break. Give me a break. Again, another example of the noble lie, right? Climate change, anthropomorphic global warming. It's the noble lie. And here is the leak proving that the whole thing is set up and fake, and the noble lie still fucking continues, even though a large percentage of the population isn't buying it anymore. But again, the policy making, boring backroom stuff that nobody really understands how it goes on because they're like not even aware that world exists. They're still, whether it's for their pocketbook or their peer pressure or whatever the reason is, they're still pushing it and creating policy based on this noble lie bullshit. So that's why I love it when we have someone like Cole Christensen coming through who's taken some Center for Self-Governance training. That's like, I can work with that. I know exactly how to handle that.
Yeah, I love this quote.
Climate change is a big problem, so therefore we need to do this thing.
I like this quote here, to your point of no lie. It's right that there's rigor applied to all the reports about climate change, but I think it would be wrong that when a mistake is made, it's somehow used to undermine the overwhelming picture that's there. What overwhelming picture?
So if there's evidence against the picture, because that picture is overwhelming, we shouldn't talk about that evidence.
Because I used the word overwhelming picture.
Yes.
Okay, show us your stupid overwhelming picture. Don't just say the word. The thing is actually...
fallacy of loaded language, isn't it? Or a fallacy of emotional language? Yeah, what does overwhelming mean here?
I think it would be wrong that when a mistake is made... Well, it's not one mistake is made. It's like these people constantly make mistakes. Their models are constantly wrong, one after another, and every mistake they make, every single one, coincidentally leans towards human man-made catastrophe, and not the other way.
Just the use of mistake here. So this is a quote from the climate change secretary. So this is not Phil Jones. This is somebody commenting about Phil Jones, right? To call it a mistake. Oh, we just made the mistake of intentionally not including the medieval warming period and the fact that we want to control the peer review process to keep people that we don't like out. That was a mistake. Right?
I'm just saying, like, this, something I also read in the book, The Neglected Sun. It's actually a German book called Die Kalte Sonne, and it's original, written by two climate scientists. And they point out this thing how come every time you people make a mistake, it always suggests human man-made catastrophic climate change? How come there aren't mistakes in the skeptics' direction
Mm-hmm.
at one point or another? No, your mistakes always lean towards man-made catastrophe. It's because that's their inherent bias. That's the story that
That's what's
they
true
want to
because it's
prove.
true, and anything against it is not true.
Right.
Yes,
I have a
absolutely.
doctor's appointment, so
Good. Well, I think we hammered it out. So that was a great talk, and hopefully we can get Cole Christensen back on here with some updates of what might be happening in Missouri and what his grandma's doing still in North Dakota. Like I said, we still got another year before they have another session, but I'd be eager to hear even at this point if she's like revving up, going, "Okay, all that stuff that you weren't able to get past, I'm on it." Right?
let's go. LFG.
Cool. Dylan Moore and Lima Major of Irita TV. Check it out at irita.tv. Go check it out on YouTube, on Tweaker or X, Odyssey. I'd say BitChute, but BitChute kind of sucks now, but you can still find us there anyway. We're on Rumble. Irita, IRIDA TV. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.